And I think this is also why I've never been afraid, because my grandfather came, I was 7, and I could see them. Then yes, they are in a different form, but they're not dead. They are very alive. I saw him with the same attribute as he had when he was alive. I saw his face with the same eyes, same mouth and everything, same body, but a bit translucid. And then I heard a voice saying, I'm here. I'm helping you. I'm here. And then I saw the cow and she said, yeah, me. And that's when I discovered that they had beings who are not living on Earth, but inside Earth and into other galaxy. I had no choice to believe it because he was in front of me.
I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of Soul Inspired. Today, I have Sabine Poncelet with us. She has done a number of things in the spiritual world, including animal communication. She teaches people telepathy and mediumship. She also works with people dealing around traumas, and she works with them from a spiritual standpoint. And also, I'm going to talk to her a little bit about something that I'm new to, which is called light language. So we're going to chat a little bit about that. But thank you so much, Sabine, for being here with us. And you're all the way over in Dubai. So thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you for receiving me.
I really appreciate it. I always wanted to know if there was a specific point in your life, whether it's adulthood, childhood, when these things were happening in your life. You started to notice maybe you were a little bit different from the rest, or you were just kind of going through differences that you weren't familiar with, or spiritually. And I'm wondering when that was and how that came about.
Since very young age, I could see spirit. Around the age of 7 years old, it started with spirit. A bit before, it was with animal. My parent divorced, I was 5. Then being a child in that situation, you're already traumatized somehow by the divorce itself. And one day I remember I had not a fight, but as a child, we want something mom doesn't want, etc. Then I left home. We were living in a village, and we have a lot of farm around. And I was always going to the farm when I was not happy with my mom. And that day I was crying, and they had a cow around and many other animals. I was sitting in the grass, and I was talking to myself out loud and also in my mind, but crying, crying, crying. And then I heard a voice saying, I'm here. I'm helping you. I'm here. Of course, they had nobody, and a child at 6 years old, the first instinct you have is looking around. They had nobody. And then I saw the cow, and she said, yeah, me. And it seems normal for me at that moment when this is happening. Then, of course, what I do, I go home, say, Mom, I spoke with a cow, blah, blah, blah. I was so excited. But of course, I took the slap of my life, because my mom, as an adult, was somehow ashamed that I could say that to the public in the village, that I'm speaking with animal, and she would be criticized. I would be criticized. Then she said, please, you don't say that to anyone. Any animal cannot speak. It's not possible. You forget that story, and I don't want to hear anything. Then I shut down for many, many years. But a bit later, when my grandfather on my father's side died, that's when other things started. He came in evening near to my bed, because I was praying at that time. I was at school and learning. In Belgium, you go either to the laicity or Catholic religion. And my mom put me in religion, and I was learning how to pray. Then I was so proud, and I was calling Jesus, Mary, 7 years old child. Nobody came. And I was like, nobody is coming. And I said to my mom, nobody is coming. She said, wait, they will come. I'm like, okay. And I was continuing, but I was expecting to see someone physically. Never they came. And one day I was crying again because I had a fight with my mom, and saying, nobody is there. Where are you? And my grandfather showed up. And it started this way. And every night it was coming. He didn't speak. He was just doing this on my head. No more. Just cuddling me like that. For many years, he came and he was behind me. I could see him very, very often. And then, of course, I could see others, not only him. That's how it started to connect me with the spiritual world. Yeah.
Wow.
Or the other side.
So at 7 years old, you find yourself hearing the spirit or the telepathy of an animal. In this
Yes.
instance, it was a
Yes.
cow, and then that continued afterwards. And you did mention it to your parents, but they wanted you to shut it down because that's not what
Of
we do.
course.
We don't walk around talking about
No.
it, talking to animals.
No, we
Right.
don't.
Okay. Okay. And then you lose your grandfather. Was your grandfather close to you?
Yes, until he, of course, he died. I was
Okay.
going to sleep in his house quite often. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there was a connection even on the human that, you know, with
Yeah.
your grandfather. So when he passed, he was the first to visit
To
you,
show up.
to show up. And actually, I'm going to dig into something I've never really done yet with that a little bit before we move forward. When that happened, is there a way you can explain what that looked like to you? Like how did he appear to you?
You know, I didn't see him solid, if I can say like that. Solid, like I see you now. You are not transparent, let's say this way. I saw him with the same attribute as he had when he was alive. Nothing changed. I saw his face with the same eyes, same mouth, and everything, same body, but a bit translucid, a bit transparent, not really solid, if you get what I mean. And also, what I've noticed, I could see him with my eyes closed, my physical eyes, but with my eyes open too. But at the beginning, you know, I didn't understand what was really going on and I was a bit scared. This is why I think he was cuddling me.
Hmm.
But when I was closing my eyes, I could see him. Yeah.
Okay. And do you think at the point when you did see him that first time, were you in a dream state or when, like, what was going, do you, I mean, it's going back quite a
I was
bit, but
awake. I was awake.
you were fully awake during the time, but when you
I
closed your
was
eyes,
crying, I was awake, and I was praying Mary, Jesus, and everyone that I learned to pray
right.
because I was sad and I wanted help. I thought that you pray to get help and they come to you and they help you. That's what I was really believing at that age.
Okay. And when you saw this, you said, was it after that that you shut this down for a bit because it just kind of it hit you hard, or was that when things started opening up?
It was maybe a year or less than a year after the story with the cow. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just after he died. Few months maybe after he died.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you're a child and you're experiencing this. I've mentioned before that I never seen things as a child, but I used to tell my mother I used to close my eyes and I could picture people in my life with colors around them. And I would explain the colors that were showing up in these auras around their bodies and faces. And my mom at the time, she knew that was different than what most kids were saying. So she started really looking into, I mean, different in the sense that we don't encourage it, right? And so she started looking into books and seeing that, oh, there could be something with this. And she would talk to me, but as soon as I started mentioning it to friends or people that were outside of my, yeah, I started getting these looks like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? Right. And so I shut it down and really hard too. I just was like, all right, that's not a part of my existence. So with you, you have this experience, which is even more than what I was experiencing. And did you hold on to that as you got into your teen years, going into young adulthood, or what happened during that time?
I shut it down, of course, because when I said also to my mom the same story with my grandfather, she was like, "No, that's not possible. That's not possible. Are you sure?" She was questioning me like an inquisition, like a policeman, and I felt judged.
Mm,
And because of that first experience with the cow, I started to speak less.
okay.
And I started to shut down even more, but more I was trying to shut down, more I was seeing. But I didn't see the good one because my mom was depressed all her life. My mom has been depressed, I would say. She has not been diagnosed, but when I looked back, she had all the behavior of someone who has schizophrenia, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But the fact is, I could see very dark one very often in the house. and I could not say it because I shut down already. I had the feeling she didn't really believe me. Then I didn't know to whom I could speak, and I started to close myself and open more with my dog. Close with human, open more with my dog, let's say this way, and with my
Yeah.
cats, and time passed, and as a teenager I saw less in the teenager time. It's like the door closed at that moment, but something else opened. I started to feel even more.
Mm-hmm.
For example, a friend of mine has a pain on the shoulder. I was doing this, and the friend was telling me, "Oh, it's better now. Oh, it's fine. It left." For example, someone would tell me, I have a pain here. And I had one close friend of mine say, where? Here? Here? Let me push. Let me push. But I was not going like a healer at that time. It was a natural way to say, oh, let me feel here, here, or there. And she said, oh, finish now. And always I had this type of situation. Or when something would happen with my friend doing something, she said, no, don't do it. I don't feel it. And she was like, are you crazy? I would say, I don't know. I don't feel it. And then something bad would happen. That what changed in the teenager time. Then I closed completely because I got married. I had my daughter. I had my life. And I was also studying in finance, and I started my career also. Then I would say somehow I completely shut down and focus on my career itself. It's only between at 18 years old that that famous friend brought me to a spirit center, or we say spiritism center, I say in English, I'm not sure about the correct word. It's a center where you have medium on the podium, aligned together, five, six, seven, and you have the people in the public sitting on a chair. And that's what we call a public session. Either you place the pictures of someone who passed away, or you don't place the pictures and you go just for listening. My friend placed the pictures of her grandmother, and she said to me, come, 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 I'm going there and it seems to be good. I remember I've been last time. Okay. And I was like, this is BS.
Yeah.
I said, this is BS. Even I could see them, but I said, this is BS, teenager, 18,
Mm-hmm.
blah. Finally, I went, and she said, place a picture. I said, no, 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 no. No, I don't need that stuff. And I wait. She received her message. She was very happy. And then one medium looked at me and she said, you, I have a man behind you. And I was like, looking left, right. I was not sure it's me that she was pointing, say, yeah, you are turning your head now. You. Like, me? She said, yeah, 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 you. They have a man like this. She gave me full description. It was the description of my grandfather.
Oh,
And
wow.
she said to me, you are a psychic medium, and I want you to come to follow our course because we give course, and you will be with us on the podium within 6 months. Normally, the course is 2 years, but I can guarantee you, you are with me on the podium. And I'm like, she's completely mad. She's crazy. I didn't believe it.
Right.
And the way how she described that man, she said, also, he was touching you this place, that place, when you was in your bed, etc., etc. It
Mm.
was so accurate that I could not fake it. It was my grandfather who was again with me. Everywhere he was following me. Then she said, come after the session. We will have a talk. And then between her and me, when nobody was there, of course, it was not public anymore, I accepted to follow the course. And
Wow.
she was right. 6 months later, I was with them on the podium. But I didn't stay because I got married, and then I got my daughter, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This is very interesting. I've had similar experiences. I've had similar experiences, but not
Ah,
exactly the same. Yes. I have, and was told that at a younger age, that around the same as you, maybe a bit older than when you were, but to go and start reading these books on abilities and things like this because it's important. And I would consistently get these people who would find me and say, and they would give me messages, and I felt like it was true, but I didn't feel like it was the right time for me. Again, I was getting into, you know, a marriage and all the things that you do, and it didn't seem right. I was doing my music, and I thought I'm gonna go with the music thing. So, not to talk about me, but it's just when I hear somebody, I get this a lot when I'm talking to guests. There's kind of like overlap of similarities
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
have at times.
for
So,
sure. Yes.
so I appreciate you sharing that. So you had these gifts as a child that you were definitely seeing things. Then when you went through your teens and you got more in the feeling aspect. That's what I feel, if anything, is feeling. I don't get actual physical pain, but I feel emotion immediately with people. Um, I don't know what that is. I'm still trying to understand all that, but you get to about 18, you go to a spiritual center, and a psychic picks up your grandfather and tells you and explains to you in detail of what you went through. And that was your giveaway. That, probably the skeptic in you was a little rattled at that point, like, okay, all right, there's something to this. So during all that time, did you still experience communication with animals at times? Did you ever have?
No,
No, so
no, I
you
shut
were
it down for for a very long time.
okay.
Also, I had a lot of skeptical people around me. Then it was not easy, even if I wanted, I think, to continue this way. I had all the excuses to left the spiritual side and to go on my marriage, children. Well, I had only one child, but I mean the life of a woman who is married and blah, and stop there. I had a lot of skeptical on my ex-husband family, on my father's side also, because even my father was believing in that. At the same time, he was skeptical. I'm like, something is weird. And
Right.
always I had something taking me out of there and
Mm,
in and out. All my life it was like, yeah, I love you, but I don't love you.
right.
It was like that.
Right. And yeah, and the people around you, that means a lot, right? Because you want to feel
Of
like
course,
you're
especially at that age.
yes, yes, because you're just starting to become a young adult and you're trying
Yeah.
to start your life and do all the things everyone does. When did all of this come to a point where you decided to accept the gifts that you were given?
Many years after, it's when I arrived in Luxembourg, but I was not fully in. When I came back in fully is when I arrived in Dubai. Surprisingly, I thought that coming to Dubai was like to have a better career in finance, because I was a finance manager for almost 18 years, which is completely opposite to what I do today.
Right.
It's like a past life, but this life,
Right.
that's really how I feel now. When I
Hmm.
remember when I've made the decision to come in Dubai, was not to develop myself spiritually and to become a healer and who I am today. It was to grow in my career, because for me, Dubai was like Luxembourg, a financial place where I can grow, and that's it. But surprisingly, I've met many spiritual people, and that's where I have learned the most. That's all the course I follow is here in Dubai. I followed, sorry. But before that, I was in Luxembourg. When I divorced, I decided 1 year later to go in Luxembourg for my career in finance, because I was a single mother in Belgium, continuing in finance. I was an accountant at that time. Was like, I will not earn a lot of money. Then better to go to follow a master in taxation. And at the same time, I move in Luxembourg and I will get a better job. Even if I'm alone with my daughter, I can secure myself. That was the idea. Not knowing that I would meet also a woman who was from Brazil. In Brazil, they are very spiritual in general. They are full on into that stuff. And she opened a small center there, and I started to go. And they were following the philosophy of a French guy. His name is Alan Kardec. He died a long time ago, and he was famous in 1800 something. It's very, very old. But he was very accurate about Spiritism. And she was following him and teaching many, many things. Then she was proposing that once a month we go to a center in my old town in Belgium. to help all the spirit that are suffering, even they are on the other side. It's mainly people who died, either they committed suicide or they did a murder or whatever they have done, but they have done shit, let's say clearly. And they pass on the other side, but as a spirit or as a soul, without their body, they are still suffering.
Okay.
And then they are stuck in some way. And she was proposing we go once a month to help those spirits. And we had always one medium, one healer, one medium, one healer. We were having a group on the table, like 6, 10 people. And we were inviting those spirits with many prayers and everything. And any, let's call it bad spirit, but they are not bad. They just have done say
Right.
this way.
Yeah.
Some have committed torture during the war, worldwide war, and wanted to correct themselves, wanted to be forgiven, but they didn't know how to do. Some didn't believe in God and have done shit in a different way. Then they want to correct themselves, and that's how we help them. That's when I started to reconnect slowly with the spirituality. Then I got married a second time. And that's when things start to change again.
Okay.
And I had always an excuse to exit, come back, exit, come
Right.
back, until finally I understood and I shifted completely. It's when I came here in Dubai.
Okay. So you were helping lost souls.
Yeah.
And I say it like that because they were in a negative energy here
Yeah.
and passed and were stuck and not realizing that probably they were worthy, these types of things. And you were there to try to help move these souls into the
Level.
next journey, whatever that is, right? So interesting. Okay, well, thanks for giving me a synopsis of your life, the way that it moves. So you eventually did accept the gifts. Were you married at the time you got the gift, or you accepted it, or was it after? Like, is this you said you?
He didn't accept.
Okay, okay,
This is why I said I had always an excuse to take me out, in,
right,
out, in. Yeah, he didn't
right.
accept, but I finally divorced. I didn't stay
Okay,
long.
right.
Anyway, that's life. And I realized later on that I was attracting people in my life because myself, I've been traumatized for a very long time and I never addressed my own trauma, my own issue. And because I never healed, I attracted to me people who were serving as a mirror to force me to heal. But I
Mm,
didn't understand for many years
mm.
until finally I touched the rock bottom and I woke up.
That seems to happen a lot. A lot of the people I speak with, it's when they get to that bottom. It'd be nice if we could all get there without going down that way, but I think that's part of life's
Yeah,
journey, right? That's
yeah.
part of learning about ourselves and then getting there and kind of growing up. I can look at many things I've done in my life where I thought, oh, if I wouldn't have gone down there, I wouldn't have decided to come back up, and that just happens. So, okay. So you had mentioned early on in the show here that you don't do as much of the animal communication now because you do work with people. But was there a short period of time that you worked with animals and communicating with
Oh, quite a
them?
long period of time. For many years, I gave courses in animal communication and I was certifying people in animal communication. But now they have enough people who can practice animal communication in the region here, even in India, because we have a lot of Indian people. And I have one of my students who is now established in India.
Mm,
Then, you know, when you work on animal, you realize very fast that the problem is not animal. They don't need to be fixed. Problem is people. But by working with animal, you can wake up some people. And that's what happened to me at the beginning of my career here in UAE. Uh, Somehow my guides forced me to embrace the career as a healer, animal communicator, etc. Because if I listen to myself, the little Sabine in me, the 3D version, let's call it like that, I would stay in finance because it was bringing a lot of money and an easy life.
hmm
You get the
hmm
point? As
Yeah.
a human being, not connected spiritually, say, I was a finance manager. Say, hey, come on, I'm in Dubai now. Hey, you will not take me out. Done, finished. I stay in. But
Mm-hmm.
then I lost my job. And they told me before. And when I lost my job, I was stuck. And they said, don't search, you will not find. And I'm like, I don't care. I was looking on the settings. I don't care. I will
Right.
find.
Right.
I didn't listen to them, you know.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
when, again, I touched the rock bottom in a different way because I was
Mm.
very, very stubborn. And, you know, in finance, you have also a very high ego. I have to be honest.
Mm.
I've been trained also to develop my ego because that's the world of finance. That's how it works.
Yes.
But then you have to shift and become another person because I cannot work with my ego as a healer. Ah, big mess.
Absolutely.
It
You
was a
know,
deep, deep, deep challenge for me. Yeah.
yeah, and there's a number of, I mean, I'm a musician. I'm a singer-songwriter for a living, and I know ego. It's one of those things that we have to have an ego in order to have a persona. And the bigger you get in the music industry, you're expected to have um I think there's a lot of musicians out there that become someone they didn't seek out being once they become famous. I think it happens all the time. We see it unfortunate, it happens. Ego is, you got to be careful with how your ego works. And I understand the whole financial side of it too. The more money you make, it's an interesting concept because it's how we go about this world. I think eventually in the future of humanity, it won't exist. I see it. I see that changing
That would
completely.
be great.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense eventually. Eventually as we progress as a human species, it makes absolutely no sense. Because we use it as a form of trade, and it can either be, it's a great thing to have, and I think there's a lot of positivity we can put around money and abundance and things like that. So I don't want to steer people away from that. But I think it depends on your intention and why you want it and what you want to do with it and those types of things. So we have to be careful of that, and we get fixated on that more and more and more. And I can understand it, and but anyways, that's a whole episode. That's a whole other topic.
Yes.
But so, okay, so the communication, if there were people out there and they're animal lovers, they have animals themselves, how can they even just get more in touch with their animal? Like, is there any kind of advice you can give? Like, what can people do to become more in tune with what their pets?
To be more in tune with your animal, I would say first work on opening your heart, but work on opening your heart and listening with your heart, not with your mind. And feel like you are inside the body of your animal. It's like merging together, becoming one. This is the
Mm,
first intention you need to place when you want to connect with an animal. And then, second, I would say start to develop your telepathy because everyone is telepathic. We are all born telepathic. We have this ability, but we rely on the verbal language, and also we have been programmed that way. Then your telepathic abilities become like a rusty muscle that you don't train. And when you come back to the gym, it's painful. It's the same here. When you train yourself in telepathy, at the beginning, it's never easy. But then you realize that telepathy has many, many levels. You can hear, you can see, you can feel. They have many, many things that you can do with telepathy. But the first one is communicating with your animal. And of course, still your mind. Put your mind on hold, or I would say on parking mode.
mm,
Imagine that you park your mind in the parking.
mm,
For the women, let your plate there, let the dinner, forget all the children and everything, because you need to be present here and now. The
mm,
best way to do that is a small meditation, even a guided meditation to help you to feel more relaxed.
mm.
And then ask the permission to your animal. Say, can I talk with you? Do you want to say something to me? Or show me something that I need to know? If it's not your animal, you need to introduce yourself. But in general, we, especially with cat are reading your CV when they finish. Okay, we can talk now. That's really like that with a cat. It's not the same with a dog. A dog will always say yes. But cat, I had situation where they're like, I'm busy now. Come back another time. It's rare, but it's happening.
Mhm.
That's what I would suggest to people as a first step to open to communicate with any animal. We can communicate with a snake, we can communicate with a horse, with a dog, with a cat, dolphin, lions, anything. Monkey. I've done with monkey, I've done with iguana, I've done with a snake. Not cockroach. Someone asked me one time, said, no, I'm not really resonating with that animal. I leave them at peace. I mean, but I don't feel the need to communicate with a cockroach, except it if they infest my house. I say, you go out now. That's the moment when I
Right.
communicate. Otherwise, it's like a spider. I've never felt the connection between me, my soul, and the spider.
Mm,
I have like, not a blockage, but I don't refuse if you ask me, but I'm not feeling attracted. A snake is different. I had the occasion and I was happy to do it.
right.
It's affinities,
That's
I would say.
interesting.
Again,
Yeah.
yeah,
So insects don't really connect with you as much as reptilians and animals, right? Because a reptile is different than an insect, but you
yeah.
notice the difference in the feeling of the energy,
A
maybe.
snake is very different. It's very intelligent. I've been very
Mm,
surprised. It
yeah.
has developed intelligence like I've never seen, and they think very, very fast. So fast.
Now, I love all this. Is this because everything is energy and it's all part of energy? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
the type I don't like insects, but I take I kill them if I need to because they're infesting my house and those types of things. And I feel bad every time. I always just say a little, I'm sorry, and people probably think I'm crazy. I just don't like it. I go, oh, time to go home. Time to go to the next whatever you're doing next time. But I don't, I think so many people probably kill things without even thinking about it. But I always give that love and intention of why it has to happen. I said, you can't bring same with like mice. You can't be bringing disease into my and going on my food, and I can't have this type of thing. So it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunate, but yeah. So
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
yeah,
That's right. Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-mm.
So you spoke on something. I was going to ask you about the telepathy thing and how you actually help people develop their gifts. You spoke about that even with developing a little bit of communication with your animals is to get in touch with their own telepathy and to build on those gifts, right? So that would be with probably working with someone like yourself who does helps people develop those things. But one of the
Yes.
questions I was going to ask was, what is one first step someone can do to get closer to developing telepathy? But you did mention meditation, and I was wondering if
Yes.
that is something that people should be doing daily or what your recommendation is.
No, practice, always practice. It depends what you are searching for. If you want to connect with animal and you want to communicate on daily basis, let's say this way with animals, of course you need to train yourself. What I explain to people after we have done the first meditation in class at the beginner level, let's say this way, then what I do, I give them a pictures. I say, now you close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and tell me what you feel. First emotion, first feeling. Don't go deeper. Don't even think. Because often telepathy is faster than our brain. You don't have time to think that you get already the answer. And most of the time, you will question. Your question is not finished. You get already the answer from the animal, or even the animal will answer to you before you question.
That is absolutely fascinating because I've probably mentioned this before on a podcast, but I did a class. It was like a mini class one time, and
Yeah.
the teacher was at the front and she was reading from a book, and she was telling us that as she read through the angels, Archangel Michael, different angels and things like that. Again, I'm sorry if I don't understand the whole language behind it, but she was explaining what was going to happen is she would give a little message, and as that message was going to go through, we would eventually envision a color coming into our presence. So I did this with a good friend, and we all were sitting there in this meditative state, eyes closed. There's about 20 of us, 30 of us in this room, and as they went through each piece, I would see the color, but the color would come in, and then near the end of the talk she would say, and now you're going to see the color yellow. You should be seeing the color yellow. Now, I had already been seeing yellow. And so the first couple of these, I was like, okay, that's coincidence because I'm really skeptical. And I was like, well, that's coincidence because I was seeing the color before it arrived. And then it kept going. And each one she would speak about, I kept seeing this color coming through. And it was before she would mention the color. And I'm thinking, okay, what's going on? How am I seeing the color that she's about to mention before she says it? Now my head starts spinning. Like even though I'm in the meditative state, I'm consciously getting like almost like I don't want to say fear, but there's this overwhelming like feeling of what's happening. Why am I seeing these things? And I think that's been a message through my whole life, is a fear around these things, because it's different than my
That's the
normal
doubt,
reality.
mainly the
That's the
doubt,
doubt.
right? Yeah.
And even at the end, she said a color and I got it wrong. Okay. So, but when we opened our eyes and she asked how many people seen one color, two colors, three colors. Well, I'm putting my hand up over and over until I was like one of the last ones that said I saw all of them. I said, except the last one, you said I'd see yellow and I saw purple. And she went, look, look, look. And she comes over with the book and she said that there is a chance that you'd see purple. Is like what I saw. So it said if it wasn't yellow, it would be purple. And that just blew my mind. She said, I want to talk to you after this. And same kind of thing. That was one of the experiences I was telling you about earlier.
Yeah.
And she said, you need to develop this because it's coming to you quite easy.
Hmm.
And but fear and doubt and things like that would go on. And I thought, I don't want people to think I'm crazy and all that kind of stuff. So for any of the audience listening, I can attest to the fact that you had said everybody does have the ability to develop these things, and
Exactly.
we can do it if we want it, right? And
Of course.
so I encourage it. And you said, so when I mentioned to you, do you need to meditate daily? You said no, just be present with,
Yes.
is it with the
That's the
here and now? Be
first thing,
present
being
first.
present here and now.
Okay.
Because we have the tendency as human being, because our lifestyle is like that, we go left, right, middle. We live in the future and we live in the past, but never in the present. This is why we can't feel most of the time. When you are in the present time, and some people will call it mindfulness, practice mindfulness is also one of the key to be present. But mainly because we all have these abilities to communicate telepathically with any beings. You can even get information telepathically from a rock or from a stone, like you see, I have it here. You can communicate. They will tell you many things energetically. Of course, you will not have the conversation like with a horse or stuff like that. But everyone is born telepathic. They have no exception. Nobody is less or more than another. We all have been telepathic when we are born. But we go left, right, we are programmed, we rely on the verbal language. And then, of course, we lose those abilities. You just have to wake it up. It's like remember your own abilities that are still dormant. Just wake it up. And I've noticed at the beginner level, when I give a class, either is animal communication or psychic development, because I do also those courses. People, maybe the first pictures, because that's the key, either human pictures or animal pictures. You start with pictures because that's the easiest way, instead of having someone that is moving in front of you. Because with someone you can be intimidated. They have many things passing that in the pictures is very simple. First pictures, sometimes they're like, I'm not sure, I'm doubting, blah, blah, blah. I tell them always one word, but I want that word being accurate. I don't need a book, I don't need a sentence. And when we start this way, I've noticed people on, let's say I have 10 people, 7 will be accurate. One
Mm,
word only, or one feeling that they got from the pictures. Don't try to get too much the first time.
mm,
Take the pictures, put the pictures in your hand if you want, just to feel if you have a physical pictures. If it's just pictures on the screen, because I'm teaching a lot online now, then it's on the screen. It's the same. Close your eyes after you have seen the pictures for the first time, and pictures, the same pictures in your mind, and ask to get a feeling or any information you can get.
mm.
And it's very, very simple. But often people make it complicated.
Yeah.
They want a full sentence, they want a full paragraph, they want a book. I'm like, no, 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 don't go there. This is for later on.
Well, I think, and I love that. I think the biggest thing is we overcomplicate a lot of things in our lives, and we get busy, and
Right.
because we're busy, we overcomplicate things. I think one of the reasons I would say, for someone like myself who wears a lot of different hats, I do a lot of things, and I'm busy, busy, busy at myself. I think it is important to, because I want to say to myself, yeah, I'll just be present all the time, but be present first, but I think there are some people that we have to start by scheduling in the time for ourselves too, because we're
Yes.
scheduling everything else. So maybe start with that. This is just my own personal advice because this is what I'm finding. When I started this podcast, I said I have to schedule this time in. I'm talking with people that are spiritual, and this is something I really want to do, and I want to speak with these people. I don't, and if I just say, oh, I'll figure out when I can do it, well, that's not going to work for me because I have all these other things. So make sure you do schedule in the time for you to develop the gifts you want to develop. And also I would say, based on what you're saying, don't be afraid of it, right? Don't be fearful of it. Because like I said, there was this doubt and fear that overcame
Mhm.
me during that time. I don't know why I went that way. I don't understand it, but it's probably from the past of telling my little grade when I was 9 years old, telling them I see colors and I see particles in the air and they're looking at me like I've lost my mind. So
Yeah.
okay, so right away my adult self says, "Oh, people are gonna think I'm crazy," and so you don't want to, but here we are in this incarnation. We're living this life. So what do you want to do in your life? And I say that to my audience too. What is it that really lifts you up and gives you light in your life? And you gotta do those things, right? As long as they're not harming anyone, and these are things that are good to raise your vibration or raise others' vibrations, you go for it. So I wanted to touch on light language. I want to understand a little bit if you could explain what that is, when that came into your life, and just get a little information on that from you.
It came in my life in a very funny way, let's say. I was here in Dubai and I took the habits to go in the park in evening. I was still living into an apartment at that time. And evening time, I like to go for a walk. And at the same time, I go for meditating on a bench. That was a habit I've taken because that was the way after a very heavy day to soothe everything and be in nature. And very often I was receiving message because of course I see them, I hear them, and I was sitting next to a tree. And that's the moment when a person came to me. And he was on my right side. I will never forget that evening. But he was tall, taller than any human I know. And I was like, wow, this is something. But the first impression was good. He had a very nice energy, very light, but I never saw him. But I'm not surprised at that moment when it's happening because I see many spirit that I've never seen before. And I'm like, okay. And he looked like human at the moment when I see him, but taller. And at the same time, his energy is completely different than any human or entities or spirit. I prefer to say spirit. Entities is very heavy as a word. Let's
Mm-hmm.
say soul, even. And then I ask him and say, who are you? Because he came, he spoke with me, it was very easy. But then I was curious because that was a new feeling for me. Say, who are you? Says I'm a Lemurian. Like, what is that? I never heard that word. That was my first time. It was in 2019, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kept that in mind, say, okay. And he said, my name is Dao. Okay, fine. And he disappeared. I continue my life, but then I went on Google, like everyone would do. Lemurian, what is a Lemurian? And I started to see, say, oh my God, Lemuria, tell us the town inside Lemuria, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow. And they had books. That's when I discovered that they had beings who are not living on Earth, but inside Earth and into other galaxy. I had no choice to believe it because it was in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And they had books written on Lemuria and on the town called Telos in the Lemuria. Anyway, long story short, he came back a few times and then he started to speak with me in a way saying, Sabine, you are changing Now your mission becomes more important. They have many people waiting for you, blah, blah, blah. And all the speech. And I was like, huh? I was happy where I was. You get the point? I never imagined that I had to go higher. And I was like, okay, fine. I was listening, but not taking so much seriously. They came back to tight a bit more after to tell me, you don't take things seriously. Now it's time. But this happened 2 years after.
Mm.
And because he was coming very often, even in my place in evening, he started to explain to me, Sabine, you will start to see beings that don't look human or have human head, but they look weird. Effectively, very soon after that, I started to see people with a face of cat, but cat human cat, or completely human, but with the ears of a cat and the hands of a human, but the tail of a cat. Weird stuff. And I was like, what is that? Am I crazy or what? That was the first time.
Right.
But he was coming back telling me, no, it's normal. They are not coming from hers. They are different. Then I started to do more research, starting to read books and everything. And at that moment, I felt something pushing very often here. And I'm not a singer. If I think it will rain, believe me, just to tell you at which level I am. And I started to do vocal like ooh, which I never did before, but it was coming like that. And one day I did a session on my daughter. This is coming 2019, something like that again. My daughter comes on the camera and I start the healing, and then light language came and I start to speak. Blah, blah, blah. She's not surprised. She's continuing her journey. And then she answered to me in light language. Then I'm shocked at that moment. And I took a paper because what she was saying, I understood. But because I was somehow in a trance, mediumship healing something with her and with my daughter, I'm completely open, then they had no doubt. She's psychic also somehow. This is why I was not doubting.
Okay.
Then listening her speaking that language, it was a different language than mine. But she was speaking a weird language that I didn't know. I took a paper and I started to write, but it was not writing, it was light code. And because I didn't speak anymore, I didn't do light language anymore, she opened her eyes and she said, Mom, what are you doing? Why you stopped? And then I turned my paper and said, look. Oh, she said, yeah, I understand. That's what I said. I'm like, what? That was my big day, you know?
Wow.
Then I look at her, say, where did you learn that? She said, I don't know. It's you. And I'm like, no, it's not me. She said, but yeah, you just did. Then you were speaking to me, she says, and it's light language, she said. And I'm like, yeah, I heard that, but I didn't know I can do it. She said, me too, but now we do. We go next time for the same thing. I'm like, what? I was really like falling
Wow.
from the sky. And that
Yeah.
was my first time. That's how it happened, literally.
Wow.
And up to now, I kept the paper. If you ask me to read that light code and
Yeah.
translate, I'm incapable. But she was telling me what I have written.
Wow.
That was a very funny situation that day. And I
Yeah.
started slowly with clients that I knew since a while, that
Mm-hmm.
I know somehow they are open to go
Mm-hmm.
higher. And
Yes.
then I was letting myself go, and that's how it started. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. And again, I'm when people are starting into their spiritual journey and getting into it, there's layers to this, right? There's layers to it. And sometimes we can hear things that are so far out there that we go, okay, that's too much. Like, can't handle that. It could be because we're not there yet. You've been doing this for a while. And so something
Yes.
like
Yeah.
light,
True.
it almost seems you kind of like almost like I don't know what the word is, but you're
Channel.
like a channel or a
Channel.
beacon for that language
Yeah.
for this, yes. And the Lumerian, I don't know a lot about it either, and I'll probably keep looking into it more. But you didn't know anything really about this before this being showed
I
up.
never heard that word of Lemurian. Never ever.
And how do you spell that? Is it Lim? Lemurian?
No, Lemurian. Murian,
A-N? Yeah.
Lemurian.
Murian.
And they built a town that it's called Telos. But this is not Dao who told me.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that into a book.
Yeah.
Because when I was searching Lemurian, because he said, I'm a Lemurian. Okay. When I was searching, I saw that they had people who have written books. And I said, okay, I need that books.
Yeah.
And I started to eat the books one after another to learn
Wow.
what it is.
That's
And that's
that.
how I learned this story. Yeah.
Do you have anywhere where that language is, you can hear it, that you've done that? Like, do you have anywhere where people can find you actually using that language, or is that something that's been more
Yeah,
privatized?
on YouTube, they have many videos of me doing light language. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
wow. Okay.
And
And
I'm
it all,
speaking different light language, not always the same, which surprised me also after. At the beginning, I didn't know what I say. And I didn't speak English with light language. It was either light language or English. I could not mix both at the beginning. And
mm-hmm.
then I started to develop, practice more. And then I found myself in some video, even I'm speaking and I'm explaining what I'm telling you in light language. But don't ask me after to repeat because I'm channeling at that moment and then I forgot.
Right. Wow. And so, and you can't, like, you can't speak light language right now, right? Like, it has to come to you from a
No, I
channeling
need to
place.
connect and
Yeah.
I need to have an intention and say, okay, I want a light language for
Mm-hmm.
this. I've done in few interviews with people where they were asking me, can you now channel light language for the audience? And it came because we set an intention.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. But people can find that, and I can get links for people to hear you
Of
doing that,
course. Oh my
or I
God.
can even
Yeah. They,
put a
they have
little,
plenty on YouTube on my
yeah.
channel. Yes.
Okay, that's perfect. That's great. So I'll get that from you. But that's really interesting. So it was a channeling that came to you with the light language. And wow. Okay. So
Yeah, I channeled the dolphin something one time. I was into an interview with someone in Australia and I didn't plan that. She just asked me if I can do it. Okay, let's see. I connected and it was dolphin light language and we got a message from the shark, from the dolphin. Even myself, I was like, wow, this is really something. But
yeah,
they have a consciousness, higher
yeah.
consciousness even than us. Then of course you ask them, you tap into a higher energy. That's it. Yeah.
Wow. So you've lived a life of seeing these things, experiencing these things, and like you said, everyone has that ability, but you've been dealing with this since childhood. So, a couple last questions. And one of the things I was going to ask you, because you've had these insights through your entire life, a lot of the people I talk to have had NDEs and they've come back, and there's a lot of seekers trying to get answers to questions about life, and that's why they enjoy the near-death experience stories and things like that. I'm wondering, just from someone like yourself who hasn't even had an NDE, but you've experienced.
Many trauma. I think what was equivalent.
Yeah, 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 you've experienced.
I don't advise to anyone to pass that way
Right.
because I want to say honestly, my childhood was very dysfunctional, and
Hmm.
myself, I've been very dysfunctional for a very long time. Many things happened not to me, I want to say for me at that time.
Hmm.
And because I never addressed my issue from childhood, many things happened one after another, then you go into an accumulation, you become totally dysfunctional.
Right.
And touching the rock bottom for me was the top level, to the point that I have attempted to my life 5 times. I was
Wow.
highly depressed. If you looked at me in Luxembourg and you called today the hospital, they all know me, but that's not a good reference now. I don't care. I'm laughing about this because that's not the me now.
Hmm.
One of my clients one day, she is with me since 8 years. She is the only one I show her pictures of me before, at that time when I was deep down into depression. She said, this is not you. I said, this is me. She said, no. I said, yeah, this is me. And she could
Wow.
not believe me. I said, yeah, this is me. It's like having a past life, but
Hmm.
I'm the example somehow that no matter what you are in, excuse my language, how deep you are in, how you walk in the mud, etc., you can always go out.
Yeah.
You can. Nothing is impossible. Everything is possible. And I think I'm the proof, because the last time the ambulance came, I was dead somehow for 72 hours. They put me into intensive care unit, and they didn't know if I will come back. And that was the moment when I really woke up. And I found the right psychiatric doctor who talked to me in a different way with more empathy. Because, those people, they see that every day.
Yeah.
They become at the end, it's difficult to show emotion because you
Absolutely.
see that all the time. But that one, she showed me love. And that was what I was needed at that moment.
Mm.
Feel a bit of love from someone. And the way how she talked to me put something like, maybe, okay. Even if I was telling her, okay, give me medicine, I will start again in 1 month. I was
Right.
living for that. I was really crazy. But I can speak this way because it's not me anymore.
Yeah.
And I went out of everything. And I want to say to the audience, you can, no matter what is the problem. And that's what I say to my clients sometimes. Say, yeah, you don't understand. I say, yeah, you think I don't.
Right. Right.
I've seen
Because
almost everything. Then, of
yeah.
course, I can understand. I feel you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've gone through the trenches, you've gone through those moments, and
Yeah.
you can see that there is opportunity to come out of that and to live your best life and go through these things, and so you work with people like that, and so where if people want to connect with you, where's the best way to connect with you specifically if they're working with you,
I'm
whether
on
it would be
social media. You can find me with my name, Sabine Poncelet, or Sabine Therapies with S at the end.
okay, and is
Yeah.
that is there is
And
that
that's
a
the name
website?
also. Yeah, that's the name of my website, Sabine Therapies with S, like many therapies.
Okay, and that's dot
dot
com.
com.
Okay, and I'll
Yes.
get those links, put them in the show notes and things like that. So you mentioned something very important. You mentioned that you did have these, I would say, close calls with leaving this realm, in the sense that you were at a dark point in your life many times. You attempted those things, and you were at one point hospitalized due to it until you came out.
Many times.
But
Yeah, yeah.
but yet you didn't have an NDE. You didn't have an NDE, right? You don't
No,
recall experiencing anything. Even though you didn't have an NDE, you didn't experience something during that time, but you've experienced all these experiences throughout your life. Do you have a fear of death?
no.
And can you explain why you don't have a fear of death?
I never had that fear of death.
So you haven't had a fear of death even since childhood?
No, no,
Okay, and why why?
no.
Why, like, because you do you
Because
know
I saw
without a
my grandfather who was dead, let's say the word in a human level. We don't say dead, but because when you listen to them, even when I'm channeling them for my client, because like everyone, you can lose someone you love and you want to connect with that someone you love and having a conversation, knowing what is happening or what happened before they die. They are in the spirit world and they explain always, I'm not dead, I'm alive. People don't understand, but yes, that's true. They are alive. They just change form. They are not in a physical body. And I
so
think this is also why I've never been afraid, because my grandfather came, I was 7, and I could see them. Then, yes, they are in a different form, but they're not dead. They are very alive.
so when you had those experiences as a child, you were immediately convinced that this isn't it. This meat suit, I always call it the meat suit. This isn't the only thing we're doing here, that there is more coming after this, or that there is things in between what we're doing here. Wow, that's really fascinating. Okay, sorry. I have a 2-year-old and she is upstairs. She
Yes.
is having she is having a 2-year-old tantrum right now. I can hear it. And so we're just gonna give it a second here, but that's really interesting. Can you hear her?
No, I can't hear
You can't.
anything.
Well, that's good. That means that this is working correctly, because what it does, it cuts out the background noise. So I'll do some edits. You have a belief system from childhood that you aren't just here, that there is more to this life. We don't know what comes next, but that you understand that we are also spirit body with human body, that there's different levels to this whole incarnation, right? So I would see that almost as a bit of a superpower growing up because, a lot of people base their decisions in life off fear of death, fear of is this a dangerous thing to do? Did you have those things the same way most people would have had? Did you find yourself caught up in life, or did you always have the sense of, well, I know that I will exist beyond this, so I'm going to make these decisions?
My fear always has been suffering. But I suffered a lot, to be honest. Maybe
Okay.
that's why, since very young age, because like I said, very dysfunctional family, even before the divorce. The police was coming very often. I'm 3 years old, and I recall that at the age of 3 years old, my mother giving me a broom saying, beat him because he's beating me. And they had blood everywhere. And the police is there. That's the image I have from 3 years old. And it's still in my mind today. But now I learned how to distance myself from that because I'm healed. You get the point, but I had to do a lot of work on myself. This is why I said, no matter from where you're coming from, what you have passed through, you can always go out, but it depends on your free will. And this is why I was probably afraid to suffer because I've seen and I experienced a lot of suffering. And for
Mm,
me, dying was not a problem, but dying in suffering was a problem. Or
right.
being tortured or stuff like that that make you suffer before you die. That was my biggest fear, I would say. Yes.
So pain, suffering, trauma, those are the things that are the most difficult in life for you. It's not the fear of what happens after you die. That was
No.
gone from childhood. It's just interesting because I do talk to people who just in life, I don't mean people I talk to on the podcast, but just have a constant fear of, oh my goodness, this person's ill and they're near their end of their life, or, oh, I'm scared to do that because what if something happens to me? It's really that fear of the end of their current existence. So it's interesting that you've lived a life without that fear, but it's probably brought you to where you are and the things that you can do in helping other people through their traumas. So that's beautiful. I really like that. Okay, and the last question I have, and I ask all my guests this, is coming from your heart, the first thing that comes to you. Think of the you are here. Here you are, living your life, doing the things you do. What is the main reason we all come here? What is our purpose of life? Like, why are we here?
For evolution, to evolve towards love. We learn how to love because I think at some point, for a very long time, I would say even aeons, we have lost the capacity to love. I mean, loving unconditionally because people will say, oh, I love you. It's mainly attachment, especially in relationship. We still have the tendency to confuse real love, which is unconditional love, with attachment. And I think all of us, no matter what is your special mission, because some have the mission like you, singing, others like me, it's healing, others is in finance, others is a taxi driver, because it's also a mission to help people. You are at the service somehow
Mm.
to provide joy in some point. A doctor has a mission, but the main things, we are coming here to really learn what is unconditional love, and that's the most difficult things to learn.
To evolve into love, to evolve.
Yeah, evolve in that way,
So it's through
to
our
be able to
evolution.
love unconditionally. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I love that. That's the interesting thing. I ask everyone these questions and they come up with something different. There is a similarity in a lot of them. Even the people who've had these near death experiences, they come back with these feelings and messages, and they all have a similar take, but yours is the first towards evolution, and I really like that. So I want to thank you for being on the show today. It's been a treat talking to you and going through all the different things that you do. And I'm sure you'll continue to go on and keep helping people. And I encourage anyone that's looking to open up their gifts to reach out to Sabine and just speak with you. I'm sure that you gave us the website, so I'll put that in the end notes. But I also turn to the audience and say thanks for sharing liking and subscribing. The soul inspired mission is continuing. We're going to keep trying to spread the message of love and enlightenment. So thanks again for being here today.
Thank you so much.